Let's start officially, everyone. Welcome to RBCM at Home. My name is Kim Goff, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. And like many of you, staff at the museum has been asked to work from home during this pandemic. And through this series, we're going to try to stay connected and explore what working from home looks like. So one of the things I'm missing from working at home is our lunchtime conversations. It's amazing what you can learn, not only about what people are working on, but about their varied personal interests that they have as well. So through this series, we'll try to recreate those lunchtime conversations with you and dip into both work and maybe even the lives and hobbies of our speakers. Today, our presenter is Archivist Genevieve Weber. At the BC Archives, Genevieve has a focus on First Nations records and outreach activities. And today we're going to explore a little bit more about what types of archival records she has at home. Hey, Genevieve. Now we're officially starting now. So okay. Genevieve, you suggested this topic. What kinds of archival records do you have at home? What do you have?
Well, I have lots. But before I get into why I have lots and what I have, I thought I'd give a little bit of background about myself and my family, because one of the things that people always ask me is why I wanted to become an archivist, and that really plays into the stuff I'm going to show you today. So I thought that's how I'd start. I did want to start, though, by recognizing that we're on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen and the Wasanich people. So I live sort of right in between. I work on the Lekwungen territory, downtown Victoria. And my family has, on one side of my family and my mom's side of the family, have been settlers here for a long, long time. So many, many generations back. And growing up, I knew that my dad's parents had immigrated here after the war, so they were fairly new to this area, but that my mom's family had been here a long time. And the area that I grew up in Langford, just outside of Victoria. And the neighborhood that I grew up in, we could walk around Langford, and my grandfather could point out things that had connections to my family from many generations prior. So we could walk down the main street in Langford, and my grandpa could say, oh, where that shopping mall is, that's where your great-great-grandmother's house was. And over there, there was a dairy farm, and that's where I used to go and collect milk bottles that I would do on my milk run, that I would deliver on my milk run, because he had a bicycle and he would go deliver bottles of milk to people as one of his jobs as a kid. And it seemed like every corner had some kind of connection. And even where we lived had an interesting family history, because I lived on the same property as my grandparents, and they had bought it in the 50s, and there was all kinds of stories about that property as well. So I was really lucky to grow up really close to relatives. We also had a bit of an unusual family, I feel, because we were really close to all of my second cousins and my third cousins and my second cousins twice removed, and we would have these family reunions and meet up with all these people, and I felt really connected to the area and to all of the people around me as well. So I have a lot of stuff, and a big reason why I have a lot of stuff is that 10 years ago now, I moved back to the island. I'd been living away for some time, and my husband and I, shortly after we moved back, we ended up moving into my grandparents' house. So my grandparents had just gone into long-term care, and while the family was deciding what to do with the property or get it ready to sell, we moved into the house. And my grandparents had lived there for 50 years. And they hadn't really done a big clear out for a lot of that time. So there was a lot of stuff in the house. So we spent a lot of time clearing out things and going through some of the old stuff and talking to my family, my relatives, my mom and her brother, and talking about what should be kept and what shouldn't. And part of what I want to talk about today is how to decide what to keep, what old stuff of our family should we keep and what should we not? We live in an era where a lot of people talk about being minimalist and getting rid of things and clearing out clutter and tidying up. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to that, and that's really good. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to throw everything out if you don't want to. And there can be a lot of joy to be found in having things that belong to your family a long time ago. So one of the things people ask me, how do you decide what to throw out? So when I work in an archives, I work in a provincial archives, and we have a fairly clear mandate about what we keep, what we collect, and what we don't collect. We're a government archive, so we keep records that that demonstrate what the government has been doing at a certain point in time. But we also collect records from other parts of the province, from families and individuals. And we have a mandate to keep things that have significance to the province as a whole. And archivists have a way of deciding how to, you know, what fits into that and what doesn't. At home, I don't need to follow those rules. So kind of the simplest way is I keep things that have some sort of meaning to me or things that I love. And it's hard because I like keeping everything, but I don't. When we moved into my grandparents' house and I started clearing out some of the stuff, one example I can tell you about is a drawer that I called the marriage and death drawer. And it was a drawer in my grandmother's in her bureau, where she would she'd go to a wedding or a funeral, and she'd come home and she would put whatever she got in that drawer, and then it sat there for 50 years. So I decided, well, we can't keep everything in this drawer. We can't keep every wedding invitation and every program from every funeral, particularly since they lived in a fairly small community, and there was, I think, only one real funeral home. So every funeral program was identical with just a different photo on the front. But I wanted to take the time to really honor those items. And I went through, I looked at every invitation and read it one last time. I read every program one last time, and I picked out a couple key items to keep. So from that drawer, I kept the thank you card that my mother wrote to her parents after her wedding to thank them for throwing her a beautiful wedding, and a couple other things. But most of it, after reading it one last time, it went in the recycling bin. I also threw out all of the pieces of cake and the crumbling corsages that my grandmother had put in the drawer. So there was basically just a layer.
I wonder if most people, maybe you can put up your hands, if that's something that used to do at your wedding. I know when I was a kid and we'd go to a wedding, you'd get a piece of the cake, and it was usually fruit cake, and it was wrapped really small in a piece of wax paper, and you were supposed to put it underneath your pillow. If you were if you were a young girl, you were supposed to put it under your pillow, and you would dream of your future husband. that was the instructions at the time. So I don't know, does anybody, if that's something that you had or a tradition you had? Somebody says she did it, it didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that it usually worked. The other thing I kept from that drawer was all the matchbooks, because people would make matchbooks as gifts for people to take home, and I
when
used
everyone
them.
smoked a lot more.
Yeah. So it was because I recognized some of the names on the matchbooks, and I just started using them. I'm already realizing that I'm taking longer than I meant to just on this little intro. But anyway, that's one of the ways that I decided what to throw out, some of the things to throw out. I just couldn't keep everything. So those things were thrown out. But other things were kept. And one of the reasons why I was so interested from an early age in my family history is that at the age of 12, I read these enormous books.
So what are the types there? Oh yeah.
So these are actually they're part genealogy and part memoir, and they were written by my great aunt, and she spent a lot of her later life writing them, and then her son edited them and finished writing them after her death. And they're a really impressive family history, so I learned a lot. There's so many things I could tell you about these books. I actually wrote a paper in university for Pat Roy's history class about these. But one of the things I wanted to show you is in this book, camera's the other way. There's a picture of this piano that my family got in 1916. It was made in the 1880s, but oh, my screen's gone. But the piano itself was built, it was secondhand when my family got it. And there it is in the background. So this piano has been in the family for over 100 years now, and now it's sitting here in our living room. So my uncle, when he passed it on to me, said that the one rule was that it had to stay in the family. So if we ever get rid of it, it has to go to another family member. So there's a lot of really nice traditions in my family with things like that, which I really like. And my son is playing the piano now. It's a Chickering piano. It was made in Boston. And I don't know the story of how it got all the way over here. It was bought secondhand here in Victoria. And it's neat because it's got all of the times that it's been repaired sort of listed on the inside. And I've got some of those records from my uncle as well. And now my son is learning the piano, and he plays it on a regular basis, which is great. I'm going to talk about a couple different kinds of records. So most of what I have are either textual records, which are things that are written down, or photographs. So those are the things I'm going to focus on today. I will talk a little bit about how I preserve them and take care of them, but I'm really going to focus, there's so much information out there about how to do that for yourself. I'm going to focus on why these things have meaning to me. So textual records, we often think, oh, yes? Kim?
Oh, I was sorry. I was just going to say regarding that, I will put some links into this chat window later. So if there will be links for you to follow to get more information.
Perfect. So textual records, we sometimes think of, we think textual, oh, it must be just a document or a letter, but they can also be things that are bound and written in other ways. This little book here, it's got a velvet cover. It's hard to maybe tell that on the screen, but it's a nice little velvet covered book. And this is printed in the book. That was already part of it, but then this was drawn in beautiful detail, and the name is Sylvia M. Wattier. And when I first came across this, I thought the name's sort of vaguely familiar, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. And I think it wasn't until I was looking on our genealogy records at the BC Archives, and I was looking at my great-grandparents' wedding registration, and my great-grandfather's parents were listed, and Sylvia Wattier was his mother. So this is my great-great-grandmother's autograph book. Autograph books were really popular for a long time, particularly before yearbooks were invented. So people would go around and collect signatures and little poems or sayings from their friends. This is a little hint. This helped me figure out where this came from. This is signed Mother M. Bernadine, and then other signatures in it list the name of the school, which is St. Scholastica's, but it doesn't say where it is. But knowing that Mother Bernadine was working at the school, I was able to look online and find that this was the St. Scholastica's in a town called, I wrote it down, Gervais, Oregon. And I knew that I had relatives that came from that part of the world, so it wasn't a surprise to me that it came from there. But that's sort of a part of the family that I know a little bit less about, so it was nice for me to feel a connection to there, to know that obviously that part of the family, I grew up Catholic, that part of the family was clearly Catholic as well. It gave me a sense of, this person went and lived in a convent, and this school had 120 pupils that lived on site. So that was interesting to think about as well. Other things that you might have in your house that are pretty common are letters. So having letters, finding old letters, that's kind of a fun thing to have, especially when you've got the envelopes. These are letters written from my grandfather to my grandmother when they were courting, I suppose they would have called it at the time. That didn't last very long. They actually got engaged really quickly and then married not too long after. I'm not going to read any of them because I feel like they're quite personal at times. They were obviously falling in love and very romantic. Letters like this, you might, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You may be going to say. Okay. I was just going to ask, when you're going through a big stack of letters, if you're lucky enough to have a big stack of letters, what are some things that might be in those letters to help you make those decisions about whether or not to keep them?
So again, what I was going to say too is that in terms of what you keep and what you don't keep, it really depends on if something speaks to you. If you have a lot of records and you think that they might be valuable or important to a specific community, but you don't want to keep them, or you're concerned that you don't have the ability to care for them properly, maybe you live in a small space and you don't have any storage space, then my recommendation would be to contact some of the local archives. If you come from a small town or a community, then I would look to see if there's a community archives and see if they're interested in your records, if you're not interested in keeping them. But if you look at it and it's something that you feel like, this tells me a little bit about my history. My grandparents, I lived on the same property as them, and I felt like I knew them really well, but reading these letters, I realized they had this whole other life before my mother was born, that was so different. And I find it really interesting to think about them. They were both in the military during World War II and living this just a completely different life. My grandfather was a truck driver, so when he met my grandmother and was writing these letters, he was often out on the road driving for days on end. And it gave me a little insight into their life, and I really like that. I was going to say I'm holding them without gloves on. So with paper records, we recommend clean, dry hands are the best. So I'm not wearing gloves because I want to make sure that I don't damage the letters by tearing anything when I turn the pages. Paper records can be kept in acid-free folders and boxes, and I can tell you more about that after, but there's also lots of information in the links. Another record here, if my uncle did manage to log on, he lent this to me, and I promise I am going to get this digitized and sent out. I just haven't done it yet. I promised him I'd do a little work on protecting this. This is a provincial high school exam result. And it's actually my great-grandmother and her sister were both given one report from their exams. So you can see their names there. Winifred and Genevieve Scaife. They were 15 and 16 when they took the exams. They did a number of different subjects that they were graded on. They both passed. And it's on this huge piece of paper, and it's pretty fragile. So I've got this big envelope that I'm holding it against, that's what I'm storing it in. It's a nice sturdy envelope that's acid-free and will protect it. So that's looking after it there. I'm just going to do a quick costume change. So this is something. It's very warm, so I'm not going to keep it on for long. This is a fur stole that I inherited from my great aunt, and I'm not here to talk about the ethics of wearing fur, but it's what I wanted to talk about was actually the fact that I really was excited to get this because it came with all the paperwork and records related to it, which tell me a little bit more of the story of my aunt getting this fur stole. So the paperwork includes a couple of receipts. It says up in the corner that this was a Christmas gift. My uncle paid for it in installments. Now, my uncle was a chef. He worked in logging camps for a long time, but I think at this point, one of my relatives can correct me, I believe he might have been running his own kitchen. But I don't think he had a lot of money. So this was a major purchase for him. He also got insurance. So when he bought it from the fur company in Victoria, he got it insured. It's insured for the worth of $1,200, which is fairly impressive. And then we also have a little pamphlet all about how to care for your fur. So when my aunt gave this fur stole to me, I got all of these records, which really helped me to understand a little bit more about what a big deal it was for her to have this beautiful luxury item that I don't think a lot of people in my family would have had, or they maybe, I know that my grandmother had, this was my grandmother's sister, so my grandmother had lots of nice clothes too, but I think it makes you think more about in this time where we can just go out and buy cheap clothing all the time. They really put a lot of thought and effort into what they were wearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Genevieve, just about that last document, there's a question in the chat window asking if provincial exams are available in the BC archives.
That's a good question. I don't think they are. I don't think we have a lot. We probably have some examples tucked into different collections. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but we have a wonderful publication that was written by a former employee of the BC Archives, all about researching education records in the BC Archives. It's available to look at in the reference room. It's quite a big, it's a book basically, so we don't have it digitized, but people can come in and look through that. So if you're interested in education records, there's quite a lot of resources. I also really recommend, if you're curious just about education in general, looking up the Teachers Bureau records on the BC Archives website. They're really fascinating. They're all digitized and they're from the 20s and give you an idea of what it was like to go to a rural school or to be a teacher in one back in the 1920s in BC. It's already 20 past. Kim, how much longer do I have? I just have a few more things to show.
I say keep going. Folks are popping in with their questions as we go, so I'd love to see what else you have.
Okay, so I had a few more textual records, but because just in the interest of time, I think I'm going to go straight on to photographs now. So lots of people have old photographs in their house, and I have a lot. My great aunt and uncle, when they moved into care fairly recently, sent a massive box of photos over to my house, which I still need to organize. Okay, family members out there, I promise I'm doing that in my spare time. This photo album is my great aunt and uncle's wedding. So that's my uncle, oh, backwards again. That's my Uncle Ray, who my oldest son is named after, and my Aunt Helen. Interesting thing about them, my Uncle Ray is my grandfather's brother, and my Aunt Helen is my grandmother's sister. So 2 brothers married 2 sisters. So one of the things that I love about this album, there's a couple things. My grandmother, who is in this photo, first of all, that's my mother. She was so cute. Look at how cute she was.
Adorable.
And my grandmother, and right there, is a bridesmaid. And I have that dress, and I've worn it to a number of weddings, and it's a fun dress to wear. I really like it. The other thing about this album is that I really like it because they got married in the church that I got married in, that I grew up going to, and I got married in years later, and my parents got married in it, and my great uncle got married in it. So this church has a lot of connections to my family, and I saw it in photos growing up, and I went to it, and then when I got married, the photos look really similar. You can see that we're in the same space, and I really love that sense of continuity that's continued over the years in my family. This photo album has some pictures from my mother's wedding in the same church. Let's see if I can. Here's some pictures of them as they're getting ready. And my mother, oh no, that's my uncle's wedding, sorry. This is an album of my my grandparents that they obviously put lots of different photos in. There are pictures of my mother's wedding in here. Here's my mom and my dad in the hall after they got married, and that's also where I had my reception as well. So it's fun for me to see those family connections. Very quickly, I wanted to show you, I know people will have preservation questions. Album is it best to store photos and albums or in acid-free boxes? I've heard both suggestions. So it really depends on how the albums are. These albums that I have, some of them are on some really terrible backing. If I wanted to really preserve them properly, it would take a lot of effort, probably some sort of chemical work. So for the moment, I'm keeping them in the original albums, and I'm putting the albums in an acid-free box and keeping them in a nice dark place, away from light and dust. Single photos, it's best to have, if you can get acid-free envelopes. You can see these special photo envelopes, they have a seam on one side but not the other. So you put the photo in with the photo side facing the smooth side of the envelope, and then keep that in an acid-free box. that will keep it in the dark and protect it as well. You can order all of these things online. There's a bunch of different websites, and I think the links that Kim will send out should be able to give you some more tips. Normally with photos, I would say wear gloves for photos, not for other paper things. Now, I've actually run out of gloves. I do normally have gloves at home, but I've run out of gloves right now. The other thing that I want to say is don't be scared to touch your old records and to deal with them. You know, we can't all have all the equipment that archivists have. So the best thing I can tell you, if you don't have gloves, try not to touch the front of the photograph. Touch the edges like this so that you're protecting the front of the photograph that can be damaged by the oils in your hands. This photo here, I really like it because on the back it says Newhouse Atkins. That's my great-grandmother. She and my great-grandfather built this house, and then when I was born, this is the house my parents lived in. So that little window by the door was my bedroom. The house had been added onto by the time we lived there. But
that's sweet.
Again, the family continuity there.
Genevieve, there is a question here from Maureen, and she's asking, is saving photographs digitally effective? I might also add, is it a safe way to protect or store your photographs?
Yeah, so a lot of people they like to digitize their photographs, and there's lots of tips. I think somebody was pointing out the Archivist toolkit, which, that was the link that I provided. There is lots of information about how to digitize photographs. It's a really great way to share photographs without damaging them. I would also recommend, if you want to put archival photographs up on your wall, if you are able to scan it and put up a copy on your wall and then keep the original somewhere else, if it's the only copy of the original you have, that's a good thing to do because photos will fade much more rapidly if they're on the wall and in direct light. So that's a good thing to do. Digitizing them for preservation reasons can be really effective. My tip for home digitization is back up, back up, back up. Make sure you have multiple copies, especially if you're planning on getting rid of the original, which I personally would never do. In the archives, we always keep the original. But if you don't have space in your house to keep the original and you choose to keep only a digital copy, make sure you have it in multiple places because you don't want to lose it. So I have an external hard drive that I keep copies of photos on. I also keep them in other places as well. It's good to have multiple ones. This photo here is my grandfather and my great-grandparents, my great-grandfather's truck. I just pulled out a couple random ones. I honestly, there's thousands. I'm gonna show you one more little one. And again, just because I think my mom and her brother were so cute. Look at that. They were so adorable.
That is adorable. We are almost out of time.
You're out of time.
There is a question here about how do we save the chat window and those links that are in there. I think you can actually just put your cursor on the chat window and highlight what you wanted to copy, right-click, select copy, and then you can save that into a Word document. But I'm also asking, there might be other people more familiar with Zoom out there. We're getting just used to this ourselves. If there's a way to save the Zoom chat and to share that. And if I can, I will do that, and we'll put it up on our Facebook link to these programs. There's
Can I show one more thing?
I'd love you to. Go ahead. And then I want to show one thing.
I want to show one thing because I focused entirely on my mom's side of the family. So I'm going to show one thing from my dad's side of the family. My dad, his parents were immigrants, so they probably didn't bring as much over from Europe as you know, they didn't have decades and generations worth of stuff. But also my dad was one of 5 children, so stuff kind of got distributed more. So I don't have as much from his side of the family, but I do have a couple fantastic things like this great photo. I just mostly wanted to share this.
I see the plaid pants and the wide ties, very wide ties.
Some pretty great haircuts. My grandmother's glasses are also pretty amazing. I keep turning it the wrong way. Yeah, so and it's, I'm sure you can tell, it's also very large. So this is a great, big, wonderful photograph of some pretty amazing styles. So that is still in its original frame. That one for now I'm keeping in the frame, and because the scanner that I have isn't big enough for that, but I'll probably at some point want to get that scanned and take it away somewhere else where I can do that properly. Very quickly, to answer the question about the file format to save scanned photos, the best format, if you have the space to do so, is TIFF, because TIFFs, JPEGs, every time you open them, they actually lose a little bit of data. TIFFs are much more stable, but they do take up a lot more space. And then in those links that I sent you, there should be some pretty basic standards around scanning photographs and how big you should scan them and that sort of thing. Scanners these days are so good. The desktop scanner that I have here is the same one that is used in the archives to properly digitize photographs. So, and it wasn't particularly pricey. So you can get a really decent desktop scanner pretty easily these days.
Great. Well, I want to show you one thing that I just recently got.
Yes.
So my grandmother, my mom's mom, passed away 2 years ago. And there wasn't a lot of stuff. I don't know if she wasn't sentimental. I don't think that's the case. I just think they didn't have a camera for a long time. She had 6 kids. I think she was just busy. Not a lot of things got saved, but my mom and my aunts were going through some things, and they came across this. I'll hold it against my shirt so you can kind of see it. It's an acrylic set of air wings. And in the center, there's a heart. Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't show up as well there as it does here. And on this little tab, bar, it's my grandmother's name has been engraved, Bessie. And so my aunts told me that, so my grandma met my grandpa. He was a groundsman at Gander Air Force Base in Newfoundland, and my grandma was a good Newfoundland girl, and they met. And something that the groundsman, or maybe the airmen, would do was make these acrylic sets of wings and give them to their sweethearts. And my grandma kept this. So there wasn't a lot that she kept from that time, but I do have this, and I find it's really, really special. I'm happy to have it. But maybe another conversation we should have is with someone from conservation, because a little set of acrylic, there's probably a special way I should keep that too. So thank you for those tips and links. Those are in the chat window. It has been confirmed. I will have a file later that I can download, and I will put that on the Facebook page, which will have some of the chats in there for everyone. And this is, as I was saying, this is a new series for us. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for being our first public RBCM at Home event. It's been really lovely. Thanks for taking that. You can see more of us online, Genevieve included. If you check out This Week in History, their back episodes are on our RBCM YouTube channel. And you can also explore more resources on the Learning Portal. Genevieve contributed to one called Finding Family. This is a pathway on the Learning Portal. There's links, photographs, tips, and so forth. And you get to the Learning Portal through the Royal BC Museum webpage. So RBCM at Home, we'll be back on Thursday. We're going to be every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. On Thursday, I'm going to be chatting with the collection manager for invertebrate zoology, Heidi Gartner, and she's going to show us how you can explore the deep sea from home. So that should be kind of fun, and certainly some beautiful images there. And if you have young people in your lives, let them know about RBCM at Home Kids. This starts tomorrow, Wednesday, April the 1st, no fooling, at 11 a.m. These sessions will feature a museum educator and a museum staff member sharing activities you can do alongside them at home. You can find all of that on our website and by visiting our calendar. We are working on the website to keep it updated with all the new things that are going on, so keep on checking that out. And we look forward to seeing people there and engaging with you while we can't be together. So again, thank you, Genevieve, and all your friends and family who joined us. Thank you. It was really nice to have them here too. And thanks, everyone. We'll stop our recording here, but we'll keep the chat window open for a little longer so that you are able to ask any more questions. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, so I've stopped the recording. And you could just browse through that little window there and see if there's anything we can answer. Thanks so much for sharing. Thank you.
There were
Nice.
so many things I didn't get to. I knew that would be the case, so I tried to limit the amount of things I brought out, but I knew I had too much.
Thanks for providing to all of us who are stuck at home, so that is nice. I see my friend from Belgium was here. Thanks, Sam.
Oh, good.
Thanks for tuning in. A little late for you. It's nice to have you here. Oh, yes, and the kids come on tomorrow, so hopefully, Sam, your kids, Clara and Sebastian can join in and take part in that. Hi, Clara and Sebastian, if you're watching.
Well, we're waiting to see if any other questions come up. I'll just really quickly show you one other thing, because I know a lot of people probably have slides at home, so I wanted to hold up this slide. I had it before, so I had a really great blank space behind it. But slides are also a great type of photograph that people have. So, nice. There we go.
A question, can someone ask if they can rewind to catch pictures? Not here right now, but this recorded session will be posted, and then you can rewatch that, go back to the beginning and see it that way. Oh, look at me leading, but I'm not touching, I'm trying not to touch my face.
Carmel, the piano's actually, we got it in, my family got it in 1916. It came to my family then, but it was actually, I have the date written down because when we had repairs done, I took the photograph of inside the piano. It says what year it was made. I think it was 1879 was when it was made.
Oh, wow.
But it was quite old already by the time it came into my family, but we've had it for over 100 years in my family.
Great. Well, it's so nice. I'm glad everyone could join us. We had over 50 people here at one point. I saw 57 as a number. So that was really lovely. And yeah, go people.
Yeah, that was good.
Excellent.
It's the quick amount of time, it goes by fast.
It did go pretty quick. I think we can close down the meeting. I don't see any more questions. Maybe I will just ask for if there's any questions or comments.
And then I'll just quickly show you this hilarious picture of me at McDonald's when I was a kid.
What are you sitting on?
I don't know what those things were called. They were some sort of strange animal that the hamburger had.
Oh, so it says it's a taste bud. I love that name, a bud.
Really? Hilarious. I didn't even know that. I didn't really go to McDonald's a lot, but I was there for a birthday party, and the mother of the child whose birthday party it was recently passed these photos on to me. I was going to use them as an example of how when you're an archivist, people just give you stuff all the time. These ones I'll probably keep. I don't keep everything that comes to me, but these ones I'll probably keep because they're really nice prints. So I need to get some envelopes for them. Oh, it's a fry guy. Yes, it is a fry guy. I remember those. Yeah.
And taste buds. It's so cute. We have a family picture of the Ogopogo, that statue. That's Kelowna, and it's still, that statue's still there. So it's I forgot all about visiting it, but I remembered the picture. So last time I was in Kelowna and I saw it, it was there. It's always, photographs are such a nice prompt for memories.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we've solved the fry guy dilemma, so I'm going to end this meeting. We'll close it out.
Okay.
Have a great day, Genevieve, and I hope all of you enjoy your day as well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.